Well, the latest Westpac Consumer Sentiment survey has just been released for the month of December. The last survey for 2024 striking a slightly softer tone as far as confidence goes. Recall that back in October, November, we saw a very promising recovery in consumer sentiment after a long period of very weak reads, finally starting to show some gains around family finances and some outright positivity around the economic outlook. We queried at the time last month whether that was warranted, whether consumers might have jumped the gun a little bit. The big moves, of course, were coming off a turnaround in expectations for interest rates, where consumers have swung from expecting rate hikes to expecting rate cuts. And as I said, we queried whether that jumped the gun a little bit. The December survey suggests that was the case. Consumers are a little less sure about the economic outlook, and the prospect of interest rate cuts has weighed a little bit on sentiment overall, down only 2 percentage points, so not too much of a shift in view, but does caution that the consumer recovery may be coming through quite slowly. In terms of the components, the details suggest that that weak September quarter national accounts update probably weighed on expectations for the economy. Growth slowing to a very sluggish 0.8% through the year. Private demand essentially stalling flat over the last 6 months. At the same time, the RBA's December decision to leave rates on hold has probably cooled some of those expectations around interest rate cuts, although the majority of consumers, over 56%, expect rates to be the same or lower by this time next year, but perhaps the pace of easing being pared back. We noticed some particularly big pullbacks amongst expectations across the mortgage belt this month. There were positives though, and by far and away the most positive parts of the survey were around assessments of current conditions. We'd already seen a significant rally around consumer assessments of finances versus a year ago. That continued in December. That particular sub-index is now up by a third over the course of 2024. It's still in negative territory, but the drag from cost of living issues and the support that's now showing through around incomes from tax cuts and other support measures is clearly starting to turn those assessments around family finances. And consumers, although they're a little bit more cautious about the year ahead for the economy and for family finances, they still expect family finances to improve as we head into 2025. The other element that was quite positive was buyer sentiment. So for a long time now, assessments of time to buy a major household item have been very weak, unusually weak for this particular component. And that's really captured the cost of living pressures and the associated decline in purchasing power. That's starting to see a more substantive improvement in the latest month. Again, a slight positive in terms of spending plans and spending behaviour going into year end. And really this is still quite a positive read compared to what we've been through over the last 2 years. Consumers are showing signs of sustained recovery in sentiment, and we're seeing some lift in actual spending activity as well, as we've seen with our Westpac card tracker. Black Friday sales activity has been quite strong. So it's still a recovery profile here for the consumer, although I think the softer tone in the December survey results, that uncertainty around the economic outlook, the consumers are a little less sure about where and when rates might be headed. Lower suggests that we're still into a slow recovery for the Australian consumer in general, although a broadly positive result overall.
The content of this recording is informational and of general nature only, and is not intended to constitute a research report or reflect any recommendation or financial advice. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs, and investment decisions should not be based on it. You should obtain your own independent advice before proceeding with any investment decision. Whilst every effort has been taken to ensure that the contents are correct and any opinions, forecasts, conclusions are reasonably held based on information at the date of recording, Westpac does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of the statements or information contained in this recording, and any liability therefore is expressly disclaimed to the extent permitted by law. None of the material included in this recording should be copied, published or reproduced in whole or in part without the prior written permission of Westpac.